Morning. Things are looking a little bit different today. We're actually going to do the sermon now on the Tuesday staff meeting. I was like, let's mix it up. And so this is what our mix-up looks like. During my studies at Laidlaw, obviously I'm young, so I've got a small amount of time of experience that I can draw from. So a lot of my experience is when I was studying, because I studied for such a long time, because I took so many tangents and stopped studying and then returned and stopped and returned. So a lot of my stories are around study. So during my studies, studying ministry or studying how to be a pastor in a church, essentially, my grandparents and a lot of friends constantly asked me this question, and it always got to me. Why are you studying what you're studying? It's not going to lead to a job, they would say. Now, that in itself, okay, fine, they're not Christian, they don't really understand it. But when you are Christian and you're like, actually, you know what? I don't want to work in a church. Why am I studying this? And so I was caught in this conflicting place of, am I really meant to be doing this thing? And so I constantly asked God, is this where you want me? Show me where you want me. And then, study kept showing itself. And so I kept going back and I kept taking breaks. And so I had a few tangents. I stopped studying. I started working at a men's clothing store part-time, and then I ended up getting a manager's position, and I opened up the store in Hamilton. And I learned a lot of things in doing that. A lot of interesting, weird things, but a lot of things. Retail is a good teacher. Then I moved on from there to manage rental properties for a company in Auckland, Barfoot and Thompson. And during that time, I was like, something's not right. I need to be somewhere else. Something isn't fitting right with my circumstances. And so I was in prayer and reflecting, God, where do you want me? And again, he's like, I need you to study this. I was like, okay, God, fine. So I quit my job again and went to study full time. And then reflection, and a lot of thing is only in reflection. Hindsight's great. I only can see how useful those times were now. Being in management with paid employees, managing a team, training, equipping, all of that sort of stuff has taught me so much valuable stuff that I can now use in this role as a youth pastor. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have those skills. And the same with being in rental management. I learned how to de-escalate situations because your owners would be calling you, like, why isn't the rent paid in my account? Like, sir, I try to explain to you, we pay you monthly, it's okay, it's going to happen. Well, it needs to be in my account now. All right, sir, we'll see what we can do. And so there was de-escalation skills learned very quickly, and they were great. And so now when things get escalated in any area, I can bring into that skill and just go, actually, how do we de-escalate this? How do we calm the situation and make people sort of create an understanding between us? And I think that's really important. I learned a lot of things. And I'm sure that these things I've learned will continue to play on into the roles and the years ahead. And I'm sure the experiences that I have now as youth pastor will also move on to the roles and experiences I have ahead. And then also I moved on to do my counselling degree, and I learned so much about myself that I just didn't know, and I don't know if I would ever have learned that if I hadn't done that work. But one thing we learned, and young people, you're going to hate me for this because we talk about it all the time. I love stories. I love stories. Stories are just a fantastic things. So youth Bible study, I'm always going on about stories. And the reason is, one of my favorite lecturers in my counselling degree, Dr. Donald McMenamin, says this: we are a library, a collection of books containing stories. And so what he means by that is that each one of us, have 1,000 upon thousands of stories of things, of influences that have taught us why we believe what we believe, who we are and why we are. And I love that. I love that we are beings of stories. And so he would always do an example. And I was like, well, let's try this at North Point. So let's give it a shot. He would always say, if I told you a premise like, do you have a story about heights? everyone in the audience should start going, yeah, I remember this time when I was up high, or I felt high, or I felt that sort of sense, right? And so I'll share my story, and then you can share yours with the neighbor next to you. Okay? You got 2 minutes to share, so you're not going to have long at all. But I'll tell you my story. So my story is when Rosella was born. Rosella was just born, that day. She was born on the 31st of December 2020. I had to think about those dates. And she was born about midday, but at midnight, Gabby had to go into surgery, and it was me and this brand new wee bubba, Rosella. She was like this big, squishy, and she just would scream, right? No talking, she can't communicate with you, who's had kids, you know what I mean, right? And new parents, there's no manual, man. There needs to be a manual. Someone needs a manual, because I didn't know what to do. I put her in a little sleeping thing, the little plastic tray, put her down, and I went to try and sleep. And then she went, and I was like, oh, she's dying. And so I would get up and I'd check, no, she's okay. Try to go back to sleep, and she would roll. And I'm like, ugh. Every time she would because I just didn't know. Now I know, I'm like, okay, she's just rolling around. It's fine. But at midnight, we was holding her, and it was Auckland, and we were 12th floor in the Auckland hospital. And as I was holding her at midnight, the fireworks went off to celebrate New Year's. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the New Year. This is awesome. I'm holding my new child, New Year's Eve, well, New Year's Day now, and these amazing fireworks. It was just a surreal moment of this is my life, is I'm now in charge of this beautiful child that's mine. And that's really scary, but also really beautiful. And so my point is, we were up really high. We're on the 12th floor. And that's my story about heights. So, do you have a story about heights? I know Carolyn does. You've got about 400 of them, just shy of 400. Bungee jumps, skydiving. Yeah, crazy. Not for me. Not for me. But tell the person next to you, you've got 2 minutes to tell the person next to you about a story about heights. And go. All right, and swap if you haven't already. Swap partners if you haven't already. Swap. Thanks, dude. Ooh. And come back. Thank you. I hope everyone had a story. It didn't have to be a story, that where you were actually high. It could have just been anything like that. So I hope you all had a story. My point is that we could do this again. We could do it about a time you felt brave And, stories, you start thinking of stories. Or, when you felt most scared. And now that's a little bit more personal because scared is an emotion that we don't often want to talk about. Or, ... We could do this for hours and hours because we are beings of stories. And I love stories. I could go on all day about this, but we won't. So my point is, we are stories. Our own experiences tell us a story about what we believe or what we care about, or something we stand against, something that you don't like. And so what I've just done is I've actually taught us the basis of narrative therapy for counseling. Because it's all stories. That's all it's about. Narrative therapy says is retelling the story, retelling your story. But we want to move on. So I wonder, do you have a story? Do you have a past that has prepared you for this moment, for today, for future opportunities, or even moments to come? Because our past has and is equipping us for today and for future opportunities. So as we're talking about stories, we're going to look to one of the most famous stories of Old Testament scripture, one that I'm sure most people will know. In this corner, not really, but in this corner, if it was a boxing arena, we would have Goliath, an undefeated champion, 9 foot tall, humongous. And in this corner, we've got David, a mere shepherd. Now, where are you putting your money? We're not gambling here, but statistics would say Goliath, who has defeated hundreds of opponents before, would be the winner. But we know the story. David, a mere shepherd, he was responsible for the care of his father's sheep. He had to protect them from wild animals and thieves. He had to find food and water for them. He had to lead them to safety. And so this required courage, strength, and a keen sense of awareness. David had to be ready for anything, and he had to be able to think on his feet. David's time as a shepherd was about to pay off big time. And if we reflect, and again, it's only in that reflection moment that we realize that David, taking care of his sheep, has prepared him to take on the Philistine army. Well, Goliath. He was blissfully unaware of what was to occur. His father asked him to take food to his brothers who were at the front lines, listening to Goliath torment them for 40 days. Now, that is a long time to listen to someone scream at you, saying you're not worthy, no one can come kill me, no one can fight me. That's a long time to listen to this, remembering that this is the army of God, and they're being tormented by one man. Granted, he's a giant, but one man still. Let's read 1 Samuel 34 to 36. Yes, works. But David said to Saul, but David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or bear, and he's talking to Saul at this moment. When a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue it from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too. For he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. So David gets equipped with armor and a shield. He refuses to take them though, doesn't he? He can't. He hasn't practiced with these. He doesn't know how to use them. Instead, he took 5 smooth stones from the river and went out to meet Goliath. And we know what happens next. David launches a stone, smacks him clear in the head, and down falls Goliath. What I want to focus on here, though, is the preparation period of David. David had to get ready to be able to be at the skill level required to take down Goliath. If he had not been a shepherd fighting off the lion and the bear, he would not have been able to do what he did. David's preparation time was crucial for him to save the Israelite army from the Philistines. If David had defied his father's orders and not been a shepherd, had ran away, the story would look very different, wouldn't it? We see that it was not just a physical battle here, but also a spiritual one. He knew that God was with him and that he had the courage and strength to face Goliath. This faith gave him the courage and strength to face Goliath and to defeat him. David's preparation also included humility. He knew that he was not the strongest or the most experienced warrior, and so he knew that he needed God's help to defeat Goliath. He also knew that he was nothing without God and that he could not do anything without him. This humility helped him to trust in God and to rely on him for strength and guidance. David's preparation also included his willingness to obey God. He knew that God had called him to defeat Goliath, and so he was willing to obey and do whatever it took to take down this giant. This willingness to obey God helped him to trust in God and to rely on him for strength and guidance. So my point is quite simple. Our past experiences is what equips us for the future. As it has been in the same in my life, I'm sure in many of yours as well. I did training to become a pastor, and I believe that all the tangents that I took helped me get to where I am today. It's helped me overcome obstacles and hurdles that I've faced in life. Just like David's past experiences prepared him for the future, just like my past experiences have prepared me for the future. I wonder what your past experiences are preparing you for. As we go through this revisioning process, I want you to be curious as to where God is leading you. Where is God leading us as a church? What is God saying about your past experiences that have prepared you for a time like this? What past experiences have equipped you for the future? So, application. I want us to come together as a church, as a body of Christ, as a people, put aside any differences that may be, any differences. Let us together hear from the living God, where God is leading us, what opportunities may be presenting themselves because of our past experiences as a church. What is God saying to you in this moment about the future which God is bringing to you? It does not matter how old, how young, where you are from, or any other thing that may separate us. I believe that God has a purpose for each and every one of us, and I believe that we are called to be the church. So, maybe God is putting on your heart that we are called to be the church. Maybe God is putting on your heart to serve in a ministry area, one already existing, such as youth group, maybe. Thank you, you are listening. Or there is a lunch after church today for Kidsmen team. They're looking for great people to serve. Maybe even the office on a Sunday. Or maybe you can help out with making coffee, help Doug on a Saturday or during the week. Maybe God is calling you to a new ministry idea that hasn't yet been born. Maybe God is calling you to be a prayer warrior, one that sits and prays and earnestly encourages those who are leading. Actually, I think we're all called to that. I'm going to invite the team up now, and as we're going to join in worship together, and then we're going to have the question for the week, eh? Perfect. And I'm going to give it to you now so you can actually think about it. Where do you sense God is leading us? And so I want that to be my application today. I would love for us to imagine, to dream, where is God leading us? Imagine the greatness that God has for us. Dream the dream that God has placed on your heart and let it be known to some people around you. Write it on the clipboards. You guys are awesome. Thank you.